Our subject this morning, is this world real? Well, sometimes I question whether it is real, and I'm sure you do. They say that there's only one reality, or the only things we are sure of is, as you will remember, death and taxes. But, what was it the lecturer said? Gentlemen, now I'm going to tax your memory for a few minutes, and someone groaned from the audience as it come to that. So, these realities we must understand. Is the world real? Is this world real? But every night in sleep, where are you? Where am I? Under anesthesia, where are we? And under certain drugs, we find that time passes away, it does not exist. Even days do not exist. And so when we analyze the question, the only reality we have is our own consciousness. Our own experience, that's all. And so let us bear that in mind as we say a few things about whether this life is real or whether it is a dream. If it is a dream, whose dream is it? Our own dream we can understand. When we meditate deeply or when we sleep and dream, we break it by waking up, coming into waking consciousness once more. But our bodies are still there. The hills are there. The mountains are there. All outward things are there. Why? Because that's somebody else's dream. Our own dream we can understand psychologically, as in sleep and meditation. But when we wake up, there is our body just the same. Now why? Because that's not our dream. That's God's dream. Our psychological existence is our own dream within this dream of God. Understand that. I said a moment ago that the only thing we can be sure of is our experience, our own experience. And we take that from the testimony of the senses, the mind, and the intellect, which testimony is not reliable, or we take it from realized knowledge within, to the intuition of the soul. And so it behooves us to know these two forms of knowledge. That which comes from the mind, the senses, and the intellect. Unreliable, changeable. For instance, you look up at night at the stars, I was thinking the other night, and they're not there at all. They've moved from that place, billions of light years away. And yet the senses say, well, there they are there, and they're not there at all. But within your soul, every time you close your eyes in meditation and look at this point here, at the Christ center, the single eye spoken of in the Bible, you will see, and everybody else will see, the same spiritual eye, irrespective of color, race, or creed. That does not change. That's realized knowledge. And you will feel within your soul and your heart, if you still the waves of the mind, you will feel the same peace and bliss of God's presence irrespective of color, race, or creed. That's realized knowledge. That does not change. Understand these two things in discussing this question, is this world real? As I have said, psychologically we can understand our own dream. But when we wake up, the body is still there. We can get rid of our body and our personality in sleep and meditation. But the body aspect, the chemical aspect, is quite different. It's very difficult to get rid of that. You can get rid of it by dissolving your body in acid, but can you put it back together again? Now, psychologically, in meditation, you forget who you are, and your surroundings, your relatives, your friends, all things. But when you come back to waking consciousness, there it is. There's your personality. Close your eyes now and dream just in imagination. And you can create all sorts of things. From what? From your own consciousness. You do that in dream, but you do it unconsciously. You can practice, you can do it consciously. You can dream with all sorts of forms and things, and then when you come back to waking consciousness, the dream disappears. So God is dreaming this universe the same way, because we are made in the image of God. We are His children. As we dream, using our own consciousness to dream, create all sorts of things in the dream, so God has created all things from His own consciousness. And science has shown this, as I'll show you in a few minutes. Science has proved this, that all things come from light. And so in our own consciousness within, using the light of spirit within us, we create our dreams, and we dissolve them by coming once more into waking consciousness. Now God does it that way, only He does it from His cosmic consciousness. He creates it through light. In Genesis it says in the beginning was the world, heaven and earth, was without form and void, because it was created in God's imagination first. Then it says, then He created light. And from that light all things have come. And so we create our own dream. Through the spiritual light within us, we dissolve it by once more returning to waking consciousness. God has created this universe the same way. It doesn't seem possible. When you feel this pulpit so hard and solid, when you take a piece of iron, you realize it is not hard and solid, it's vibrating light atoms. Understand that now. That's why this world is not as it seems. This world is not real at all. And so God has created all things from His one cosmic consciousness. Now as you break your dream, we break the cosmic dream the same way, by coming not into waking consciousness, but into cosmic consciousness. And you can perceive it within yourselves at this point. That's where you contact the presence of cosmic consciousness in you, or the presence of God, whatever you want to call it. How will you know it? By the peace and bliss which you feel. Witness that God is in you. And so this world is not as it seems. It is not real in the sense we take it to be. As we are made in the image of God, in the universe, we have three universes: the causal, the electronic, or the universe of energy, and the physical universe. We see the physical universe. Behind that is the vibrating energy of universe of energy, electromagnetic force, and behind that is the cause of things. God created things in the beginning, but they were without form and void. Why? Because they were created in idea. Then He created light, and from that light, shining through these films of idea, He's created universe upon universe, world upon world. Through what agency? The agency of light. Light is the matrix. Light is that which does not change. These forms change, these outward forms change, but the light behind those forms does not change. Everything resolves into light, the speed of light. So, as God has created universe upon universe, so we, being made in His image, also can do the same thing. And we have within us three bodies. As the universe has three universes: causal, that's idea, that's all; electronic, or the universe of energy; and finally the physical universe. So we have three bodies: causal, the body of ideas; the electronic body, the astral body, the spiritual body; and finally this physical body. When you create a picture, what do? You have the idea first. Then you gather together the forces, and you paint, and finally you have the picture. And so we are made in the image of God. And as God has created all things through the agency of light, so we also can do the same thing. We are made in His image, and we have the same powers which God has. So understand those three universes, and also your three bodies which correspond to them. Just for a moment, the physical body is made up of 16 elements. The astral body or electronic body of 19 elements. 10 senses, 5 pranas, mind, intellect, ego, and chitta. And then the causal body is made up of 35 ideas, the sum of the 19 and 16 in your causal body. Now that's why this world is not as it seems, and this body is not as it seems. It is not as you think it is. Matter, it is vibrating light. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Ye are children of light, we read in the scriptures many places, because we are not just this physical body of matter. One chapter I'd like to recommend. I do not often recommend reading certain books, but in the autobiography of a yogi, if you read the chapter on light and miracles, and then you'll understand just how things are not as they seem, but that this universe is a mass of undifferentiated light. And in that chapter, if you can read it, it'll help you very much. And so with the advent of the electron microscope, a few years back, they find that everything, including the hard metals, tungsten for instance, is made up of vibrating light atoms. And you can see them there. And Professor Eddington and Professor James Jean, they have shown that matter is always resolving first into electromagnetic force and finally into light. They have shown that. The hydrogen atom breaks down into photons. Its protons and its electrons. When it is annihilated, what do you have? You have the same mass as light. And so this universe is not as it seems. It's light. And one other thing, as these two professors of which I have spoken have shown in their experiments, and others have done the same thing, that matter is continually changing into electromagnetic force and finally into light. Another professor from Harvard, Otto Oldenburg, has shown the other way. He has taken light, made it into electromagnetic force, gamma rays, and finally into positrons, showing that matter comes from light. The underlying essence of the atom is light, nothing else. And so with us. Our underlying essence is light. And those who meditate can easily supersede this waking consciousness of matter, and they can perceive themselves as light. Meditate and find out. You'll never believe it until you try it. And then you'll know. How can light be sick? How can energy, how can electricity be sick? It cannot be. It's the fact we believe it to be something else. We believe ourselves to be this body. But when you realize that you are not the body, but the energy and light of God within you, then you can rise above pain and sickness. Those of you who will try it, if you have a severe pain, if you can concentrate deep enough at the Christ center, you can supersede those vibrations because you rise above them into the region of light. Spiritual light where there is no pain. You have to understand these things by experience. Then you will know. And so, the worst of it is, man has been deluded into believing that the universe is made up of forms. That's the thing. Forms instead of infinite light. The infinite light of God is behind all things. And realize science has shown that everything resolves first into energy and then into light. And the yogis did it long ago, ages ago. They did it through meditation. They resolved their bodies into energy and finally into light. And then they knew that they were indestructible. Consciousness cannot be destroyed. There can be a break in the continuity of consciousness. But if you can keep that continuity, then you have immortality right within your hand. If you can sit and meditate, as many do in this room even, and one point the mind, so that there's less carbon in the blood, and the heart slows down and the breath slows down, you'll be sitting there meditating fully conscious without breath. The heart will slow down. These are not imaginations. Try it. And knowing that, you will know that you are immortal. How else are you going to know? Imagining it or believing it will not do it. You've got to realize it through realized knowledge, and you'll know that you are immortal. These things are scientific. They can be done because we're made in the image of God. Only, or rather, I said that man had become attached to the idea that this world is made of forms instead of realizing it's the infinite light of God underneath. But the worst of it is he's become attached to the forms, and that attachment has enslaved him. But by meditation, right meditation, you can rise above the world of forms into the world of reality and realize the underlying essence of life. Only by realizing the Lord within each and every one of us can we rise above this delusion. But if we meditate regularly, and especially begin while we're young, set aside a little time each day to making friends with God, who gives us life and everything. And then, when the habit has become established, and you'll realize yourselves as the infinite light of God. Only realize by knowing the Lord, who is real, can we break this delusion. Can we understand and know the omniscient light of God at the single eye here? That's the way to break the delusion. Otherwise you think this world is real, made up of forms and all such a thing. No. The only reality is the underlying light of God within you. Understand that. I'll read one reference from the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, wherein we read, "To tear the veil of matter is to uncover the secret of creation. He that thus denudes the universe is the only true monotheist." That is, when you denude the universe of form, by seeing the unity of God's presence here, knowing the light behind the atoms, as our Master used to speak of. All others are worshipping heathen images. So long as a man remains subject to the dualistic delusion of nature, the Janus-faced Maya is his goddess. He cannot know the one true God. And then also, going on, I have two parallel references which substantiate what I have just said. One from the Bible and the other from the autobiography of a yogi, which are most wonderful. Listen carefully. These are the words of the scriptures that have been handed down throughout the ages. And Ezekiel, 43rd chapter, the 1st and 2nd verse. "Afterwards he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east." This is the east of the body. The west is the posterior part. This is the north. The south is the base of the spine. He took me, it says, afterwards he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east. That gate is the spiritual eye at this point. And what did he see? "And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like the noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory." That's where you can see the spiritual light of God. That's where you can feel his presence. That's where you can hear the sound of his voice, the sound of many waters, the trumpet sound, right within yourselves. Not something outside, right within you. And in our own scriptures we have that reference. Also from the autobiography of a yogi written by our founder, Paramahansa Yogananda, we read this. "Through the divine eye in the forehead, through the divine eye in the forehead, the yogi sails his consciousness into omnipresence, hearing the word, or the great Om vibration, the Amen, hearing that sound of many waters, he realized this vibration as the sole reality of creation. God is one. His consciousness is one. It becomes many, it becomes diverse, but we have to know the unity behind the diversity. We have to know and realize the oneness of God right within us. And so, realize in closing, our Master has left these wonderful words which I'd like to give to you at this time. The description of the cosmos. He says we have no existence but in the universal. We have no existence except in the universal. Well, look about you. Friends are dropping off all the time. Things are changing. But the only security, the only real existence, as he says, is in the universal. Science has said that electricity and energy is nothing but frozen cosmic consciousness. If you yourself can consciously dream, from your own consciousness you can make forms, and you can make the dream, and you can feel and taste and smell in the dream. Why? Because it's nothing but your own consciousness, first becoming energy, finally matter itself. And so God has created the same thing. First his great consciousness becomes energy, cosmic energy. Look what's in the atom. When they split the atom, look what happens. Look at the tremendous energy that's unleashed, because God's consciousness becomes energy. And that energy becomes frozen or condensed into matter. But behind that all is one thing, the consciousness and energy of God. Do not forget that. The unity. You can prove it if you will meditate scientifically. You can prove yourselves as light. Energy and light, not as this changeable bodily consciousness. Understand that. And so to go on to the Master's reference, he says, the body which you see is nothing but materialized electricity. How can electricity be sick? It's a delusion. But it's quite different from just simply saying it is a delusion and proving it. Those of you who suffer pain, if you will concentrate at the Christ Center and really want God, you can supersede the pain within you without question of a doubt. You can rise above it. Then and then only will you know that pain is a delusion. While you're in it, it is far from being a delusion, is it not? It's something we want to be rid of. But by concentration at the right place, elevating your consciousness so that it vibrates at a higher rate than pain, you can supersede pain. And so this universe is nothing but light vibrating at different rates of vibration, moving at different rates of vibration. Even thought is light vibrating at a high rate of vibration. This body is light vibrating at a lower rate. And so remember, behind all things is the one reality. That's what's real in the world. Nothing else is the light and the love of the one Father. Know that, and you will supersede this diversity, this unreality of this world. And so the Master closes this way. Self-realization fellowship yoga. Yoga simply means union, that's all. Union with what? With the Spirit within you. Yoga is not some fanatical practice. It's a scientific practice, the most scientific practice that unites your spirit, your soul with spirit within. From Yale University, Dr. Buchanan was sent to India for what purpose? To prove yoga was scientific. He went there on a fellowship and he showed that the practices of yoga were very scientific and that the calmness which comes from the practice of yoga is connected with those particular practices, and it has a very calming effect on the body, the practice of yoga. And he finally ended up by testifying, he said, I have met many people. I lived a year with different yogis, and I must say, I found them to be the calmest people I met. And they had a reserve that I found in no other people. Why? Because they had united their consciousness with the presence of God within. That's why they have it. And that's why each and every one of us can have the same thing, because we're made in the image of God. Let us realize that. And so Master has these final words. Self-realization fellowship yoga teaches that it is only by coming in contact with God that one sees that God's consciousness, vibrating as energy, electricity, and then being further frozen into matter, is the sole cause of this cosmic dream. This world is a dream, But behind the dream is the reality of God's presence, His one consciousness and His energy, which can be realized by each and every one of us because we are made in His image. We are each and every one of us a child of God.